Well, we're back, and it's like, it's asking me, are you lit? I mean, that's my Mathew McConaughey. Are you lit? That's what's going on over here.
That's all him. He's the pure. Really GH1. He calls me many nicknames. One of them Professor, I think, because I'm a professor at the UT. No, he's the generally heroic one, more so than me. So your question being what? How am I generally heroic?
Or how do you respond to that? Can you take that compliment? How does that land for you?
Well, I've enjoyed trying to entertain what the definition of a hero is all through life. I mean, you've got the what's always been said is they talk about, our men and women who go off to defend the country are the true heroes. And then you say there's heroes every day that do good deeds. I don't know if that's heroic. I'll say this on any kind of heroism, whatever your definition is, whatever anyone's definition is. When I got fame and success, it started a foundation that we have at Just Keep Living Math School Foundation that's doing very well. I chose to do.
Chose to do what now?
It started a foundation that we have at Just Keep Living Math School Foundation that's doing very well. I chose to do that. Whether that's heroic, I don't think it's heroic, but what I'm leaning into is this. Some people say it's a responsibility once you have success. It's your responsibility. I don't think that's true. I think it's a personal choice. Just like, every day the choices we make, I think
It's your choice whether or not to be a fireman. Just because you're gifted basketball player doesn't mean it's your, you're physically able. Doesn't mean you have to be a firefighter.
I've been fortunate
that's a choice. That's bravery, and that's dedication, and that's selflessness.
Still got some things in the debit section.
And to do that with your money, to risk your financial security is pretty brave.
Being a good father is a heroic job. It's just being a good father. So
yeah, being a good father, you don't get a pat on the back for being a good father. That's the bare minimum. When you're a father,
it all depends on how you define it, how broadly or how strictly, I suppose. But more a conversation around how to be a man of character, I suppose.
You put your child into the best schools, and you personally make sure they have the best education. A business to follow after, something. Quit talking over me. I'm going to stop talking over you. You guys are talking too much. Really, though. Really hope you said gets through to people. Like, it's not enough to be, and it's not mandatory, even hardly to be like a good person. It's okay to be like an okay person, or even kind of a shitty person. But, to be a father, you need to be a good father. That's the bare minimum. And you don't get a pat on the back for that. That's the bare minimum. To be exceptional, to be great, to raise another person's child, or to put your child into the most opportune, enabled position that you are able, to personally guarantee their education and take it in your own hands, or give them a business to follow, or the capital to follow the education of their choice, yeah, then you get the high five. Then you get the gold star. Then you get you get a gold star every day for being good. But you know what? You want a bonus? you want to win? Guess what? Everybody else is getting a gold star too every day. They better be. They should be. And if they can't, that's where somebody else could get a double star. Helping out when they didn't even have a kid, and taking care of somebody else's. We all can help. Lighten the load is our abilities are all equally possible, I want to say, but they're not all developed. And yeah, we'll go back to letting them talk.
So, and then I've also learned now that, okay, well, just because you help make a child doesn't mean you did the work of a father. Fatherhood is a verb, as in life is a verb. These character choices we make every day are compounded assets for our future or not. I have been blessed with that long view of life, of realizing early on that investments in ourselves today can tee up ROI into our future, can buy us green lights in our future. The choices we make today are compounding assets of our future and can tee us up for success. Hence the title of the book, Green Lights. I know for a fact we can engineer green lights in our life. I also know for a fact that I've been damn fortunate and had some just fall in my lap. But choices of character are long-term choices that deal with delayed gratification.
Yeah, I remember something that Dan told me a while back, which was when he was early in his career and thinking about what he wanted to do and who he wanted to be, he was spending time working for George Plimpton at the Paris Review, and he would go to these fancy, Upper East Side parties with all these mucky-mucks. And George, although he was respected, wasn't necessarily a man of means, but he had made this decision to live this life of adventure. And when they would go to these parties, all these people would gravitate around George because he was
George Porgy, pudding and pie, kissing girls and making them cry. That's why. They gotta love you before they can hate you. Nah. Ain't nobody gotta be a hater. It's a participator. And every now and then, expert negotiator. What is the deal with this? If I was watching Joe Rogan podcast, this thing would flow on my 4G or less internet,
the one with the stories. And that's what made Dan inspired to live.
Maybe it's because I'm trying to triple bypass all of the stalkers of the internet
kind of amazing
universe.
Life of adventure that he's lived. And I see a lot of that in you. I mean, we're going to talk about the book, but these pivots that you've made, the wanderlust that kind of infuses your life, and these moments where, by dint of a wet dream or some kind of epiphany that you would have, or being stuck, you would always know this is the time where I need to kind of do my walkabout. So I'm interested in how that kind of plays into the fabric of your life and how you prioritize it.
Well, look, I think, those hints, angels of truth are around us all the time. It's just we don't always notice them. They're there, but we don't notice them. And it's understandable. A high-frequency life, man. A lot of noise coming in on all of us. So I have learned early on to listen to that spider sense in me that says, you need to go get away, McConaughey. You need to go spend some time with yourself. Open up the Autobahn between your head and your heart, because right now it's a bit of a one-way gravel, dirt road for you. And, your heart and your mind aren't really in sync, as much in sync as they should be. And then questioning what matters. I've always questioned since I was 14. It's one of the things with writing the book. My diary entries when I was 14 were about similar topics that I'm still interested in today at 50. I've had a pretty good threshold for when I do get that spider sense to say, oh, you need to get out of here, McConaughey. You need to leave what you're in so you can get outside and have a clearer view. You need to leave where you are right now and find out, what do I find out when I go away? Memory catches up. demarcations between events that maybe I was handling, and I'm good at handling events, just being in the middle of it, going, Preston, let's do this. Pilot on me. I'll be a horse. I'll get through it. But I didn't notice what had happened to me. Like, for instance, when I got famous, I didn't notice what that was until I got the hell out of Dodge and went on a 22-day walkabout with myself in Peru. Then I was like, oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's what that event or circumstance or run-in with that person was about. Because they were all on top of each other at the time, I wasn't able to separate things that were going on. Too much frequency. So I have gone away many times on my own. I've learned to enjoy the solitude, not necessarily enjoy my company in the solitude, which usually the first 12 days I do not enjoy my company. I'm shaking demons off my back, feeling regret, lost, confused, trying to figure stuff out. And usually around day 12 or day 13, I'll have a breakthrough. And it's that breakthrough where, all right, come on, hey, since you're the only guy I'm stuck with and I can't get rid of, which is each of us for ourselves, what are we going to forgive and what are we going to say I'm not putting up with anymore? Figure those two out, shake hands with myself, and wake up the next morning. And then those trips are wonderful. Then I'm present. Then I'm singing a song. Then wisdom's landing on me. Then I'm hearing those angels and those butterflies of truth that land, and you go, bam, this is on me. I'm hearing it. Now, how do I personalize it, this truth, and ask myself and answer the question why it's coming to me? How do I preserve it? Have the patience to preserve it. And then when I leave those trips, the big fun challenge is, how do I take that truth, the solitary truth, back into the masses, back into the stadium of life, and ride that bull, that rodeo of life, and remember, trust that this truth that crossed me, that found me while I was in solitude, is true now, then, and forever, wherever I am.
Right.
That's the hard part.
It strikes me as almost this impulse for self-preservation or self-defense. Like it takes a certain level of awareness as an individual to recognize those moments, even if they're visited upon all of us. And you're somebody, the fact that you've been journaling consistently from, way back from an early age tells me that you're an introspective person by nature. I'm not sure where that came from. Maybe you have an answer to that. But then you go on these adventures that are about self-defense, self-preservation, reinvention, reflection, and then the hard part is bringing it back and not letting it evaporate, but taking, being able to distill whatever wisdom comes to you about the experience itself, but more importantly, what you learn about your own self, and then trying to exude that, to imbue it, and live your life in accordance.
Yes, and you're right. The initial reaction to leave and go into solitude is a defense mechanism, is a survival mechanism, is a whoa, I'm not feeling grounded here, mentally, spiritually. So I don't know what the answer is, but I just know I got to get out of here where I can hear myself think. I know I got to get out of here where I can be in a place where I can receive some of the truth. Then, that fun challenge of bringing it back. And yes, not let it be stripped away, which it eventually does, and it gets stripped away. But to even better, sometimes bring it back and play offense with it. Like I'm not just coming back going, like, can I hold on to it? I want to put it into action. I want to, it's why I'm such a slow reader. If I read, one of my favorite writings is Emerson's essay on self-reliance. Well, I mean, that essay, which is about 20 pages long, took me 2 years to read. Because
so good, though.
The first paragraph, I'm like, whoa, I got to take that and see if I can apply that in life and see what the reverb of life is back to me if I'm looking through that lens, which takes me a couple of months before I can come back and read the next paragraph. That's the fun stuff I like to read, or the fun things that wisdom will come to me in solitude that I want to take back into society. And you're right. It strips away. You look up and you go, I'm falling back into some old habits. I forgot that. I got to go calibrate. I got to go back to school. I got to go break a sweat. I need to go away again. I need to go revisit my diary and look at what I was doing when I was satisfied, when I was successful, when I was happy with myself. My relationships were good, when I did have that autobahn between the mind and the heart. And because I'm in a rut again, so I need to go back. And I've found clues in my diaries of when I was happy as to what I was doing. Oh, who was I hanging out with? What was I drinking? Where was I going? How much sleep was I getting? oh, I see. Now in my life I'm in this bit of a rut. I'm complacent with some of those things. I'm doing some things that are not feeding myself, and so I need to go back. So some of those diaries have been good little maps for me to go back and dissect when I felt successful and happy, rather than just go dissect failures, which is more of our habits, I think.
Do you find it more difficult to pull the trigger or pull the ripcord and split when things are going well or when things are challenging? Like, as you progress through life and you have more responsibilities and more abundance in your life, it's got to be harder to say, I'm gonna walk away from this and go try something else. It's different when you're all of whatever you were, 23, 24, and you were living in an Airstream.
Yeah, and having 3 children and a wife and a family makes that a little harder too. But yeah, more difficult when things are going well, because I don't know about you, but me, when things are going well, I inevitably feel like, oh, well, this is the mean. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how it is. I've got it figured out. This way, there's no reason for it ever to dip below this, which of course it always does. And then I got to go off again. But I have, part of the inspiration for going away to go write this book was that I needed a trip away, and not only that, my wife knew I needed it.
Yeah.
She gave me a kick in the backside, and she'll come to me and tell me, you need to get out of here for a while. Go off, don't come. And then I'll call, and she'll like, don't even call. Well, of course, what's that mean? Of course I'm calling now, right? Much quicker than if she just said, make sure you call, because I don't like to be told what to do. But I'll go away, and like with this, she goes, don't come back till you got something. However long that takes, we're good. I got the kiddos here to go. It was a gift she gave me. I was able to go away on these walkabouts without having to look over my shoulder and go, am I building a debit right now? Because when I go back, am I going to have to do a whole lot of extra work to catch back up for what I missed? She's never been someone who made me feel like, okay, well, now you've been away, now you need to double up on all your duties. It was always like she pushes me out the door, and she did with this book.
That's amazing. You definitely married the right one for that.
Yeah.
Well, as the story goes, and I don't know how much of this is apocryphal versus true, you took off with your journals. You went to the desert for something like 52 days. I read somewhere that you did it without electricity, but then in the book, at the end of the book, you were in a couple different places, right? Like, I'm envisioning you with a typewriter. Like, if you don't have electricity, how are you writing this book?
Well, I started off with that electricity. The first 12 days were with that electricity, and I took a generator so I could plug in my laptop. And that was just, I wanted to go someplace where email, I'd shut down my account. I wanted to go someplace with no phone signal, to where only 6 p.m. each night there was a certain hill about a half a mile away that I would hike to the top and make the call to check on the family, and that was it. Other than that, no incoming calls, no incoming emails, no outgoing. I needed to be stripped out of the necessities to go say, how can I best go have solitude with me and me of my last 50 years, without any outside invitations. And so that was the first. I went into it. It was intimidating when I wanted to go. I thought, looking back at 50 years of my life, I was going to be embarrassed. I knew there were things I was going to be ashamed about. There were places I was going to go, you arrogant little prick, what were you thinking? And what happened is, most of the things that I thought I would be embarrassed about, I ended up laughing at. Most of the things I thought I'd be ashamed about, I'd ended up forgiving myself for, or noticed I already had forgiven myself for. And the parts where I was arrogant, I laughed at, but was also like, well, good on you for thinking you knew it all at that point. Because following those points in my diaries where I would be so self-confident and all-knowing, I always very soon stepped in shit in my life, going based off like I absolutely know it. And I was happy that at least I had the confidence to think I had it all figured out. And then as life dealt me cards, found out I didn't. I went away thinking that these diaries are going to be much more academic. And I remember the first 4 days sort of trying to force it into an academia mind, and all of a sudden I stopped. And I remember I stopped one night and I said, look, all right, you haven't even looked at these things. Just read each page and see what it is. See what it lends itself to be. and let's just stack up, see if some categories show up. And what happened after about 10 days was I had these 7 stacks. It was a stack full of stories. It was a stack full of people, a stack full of places, a stack full of prescribes, a stack full of poems, prayers, and a whole bunch of bumper stickers. So those were my categories. And then I said, okay, we have some semblance here, some structure of something. Now what is all this? And that was actually what I just riffed off was my original title. Stories, people, places, prescribes, poems, prayers, and a whole bunch of bumper stickers.
Yeah.
Not a bad title. But I then said, now let's read through all these and see if another central theme or column reveals itself. And that's where the title Green Lights came from. I noticed that there were successes in my life that I engineered. I noticed there were successes that I got just plain good fortune and landed in my lap. I noticed that in certain ways, red and yellow lights in my life, crises and hardships, I believed while I was in them that there was a lesson to be learned in a green light asset within them, not knowing when it would be revealed to me, but trusting just to stick with it, stick with the hardship, endure it. And there's a green light in it. I noticed that some things that I thought, like my father passing, how can that be a green light? That's an absolute red light. Well, I keep reading my diaries. 10 years later, I'm understanding how the values and incentive that he taught me, I wouldn't have enacted them in my own life if he'd have still been alive, because I would have relied on him being there to have my back. So his passing away actually gave me a kick in the backside to look the world in the eye and have more courage to go chase down who I wanted to be and be myself. So
snap, crackle, pop.
some of the hardships that I had revealed green lights. Some of the hardships I've had, I suppose, have not revealed their green lights yet. It may not reveal themselves. They may only reveal themselves to my great grandkids. I don't know. But eventually, the theme of the book is that all the red and yellows do eventually turn green, and I believe that.
Yeah, so the narrative always comes back to this idea of green lights. And I mean, first of all, I should say, like, I finished the book this morning. I loved it. To echo what our other mutual friend Ryan Holiday said, I think he said something like, I knew it was going to be a good book. I didn't know it was going to be this good. Like, you did an amazing job with this book. It has this really,
right on the nose,
very McConaughey-esque touch to it. Like, it's your book through and through. But it also reminded me of kind of the Beat Poets. It has that type of aesthetic, and it's this kind of patchwork of, stories from your life in a relatively traditional kind of memoir narrative, but interspersed with your poetry and always with these kind of life lessons and takeaways that are just unbelievably wise. And I would look at these and I would wonder, like, how old was he when he wrote this stuff? I mean, when you went back and looked at your journals, were you surprised at the wisdom of some of the things that you said when you were younger? Was there anything that stuck out that you didn't expect?
Obviously, the earlier diary entries were whys. Why, what, where, when, hows. It was the questions. There was a question mark after everything. So I was always seeking the questions. As I evolved and got older, I started to answer some of those questions and could sum them up in a wisdom bomb or an aphorism or a bumper sticker, right? But it didn't lead to any fewer questions. My questions evolved, I think, but as I said earlier, the questions I was asking at 14 about existence and who am I and what matters and what's life about, how the world works, who am I in this world? I still question those.
But to interrupt you quickly there, it is unusual for a 14-year-old to be asking those kinds of questions. So I'm curious, like, where do you think that comes from in you?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because we weren't raised as a very introspective family. We always have our prayer and gratitude as a family. We were raised as consistent extroverts. I mean, like, I wasn't allowed to watch TV or read because my mom would say, why read about or watch somebody do something that you can go do yourself? Get outside. As always, go do it. Go experience it. So, I don't know where. My family, my mom wasn't really a writer. My dad wasn't. I was always, though, early on, the inquisitor of the family, the interrogator, the one who wasn't satisfied with mom and dad just going, because we said so. I would go, well, let's get underneath this. That's why I was going to be a lawyer. They were like, dude, you, Matthew, the youngest one, you debate things and question things to the nth degree, and it's exhausting at times. So I was always sort of wanting to get to the underbelly of the meaning of things at a very early age. So I don't know where that came from, but that's just kind of, I think, always been who I am.
You know, in reading about growing up with your dad, I mean, I was thinking most people who have had an experience like that would be, you know, doing a lot of therapy and harboring a lot of resentments, but really have a lot of peace around it and a lot of love.
A lot of honor and a lot of love. That's the word. You know, if you look at the stories, I open up with a wild story about a monumental fight that my mom and dad had, which got bloody, but ended up with them making love on the floor. I always, when people ask me about the love in my family or the love that my parents had for me and that my mom and dad had for each other, I always have told these stories of discipline that involve some form of violence or corporal punishment. And on this book tour, I've been wondering why, because when I tell you the story, you see me light up. And people go like, on paper, I've got my hand over my mouth going, oh my gosh, call Child Protection Services. Right. And yes, Matthew McConaughey, you must have been in therapy since then to deal with this trauma. And I'm like, no. So when I tell the story, though, people get you see the humanity and the love that I have for them. And I think the reason I tell those stories is because they were the biggest test to defeat the bubble of love that we were surrounded with. But they never had a chance of beating it. And so I tell those stories because there's like a lightning rod of like, oh, this is trauma, oh, this is violent, oh, this is a problem, oh, this is where it all falls apart. But it actually never had a chance falling apart. I mean, my mom and dad, divorced twice, married 3 times. The 2 divorces are that lightning rod trying to puncture that bubble of love. Ended in 3 marriages, got married more than they got divorced. Us getting punished. I earned everything I got punished for. And I look back and I go, well, you got your first butt whooping for not answering to your name, your second for saying I can't, your third for saying I hate you to your brother, and your fourth for lying. Well, if I'm going to go back and do the math, that's 4 pretty doggone good reasons to get your butt whooped. Always answer to your name. Know you're having trouble doing something instead of that you can't do it. Don't hate and don't lie. I mean, there were values instilled in those. And every time I did it, I remember not the butt whooping, but the value that I don't say that word, C-A-N-T. You know, I don't hate. I do go, no, it's not Matt, it's Matthew. You know, I do my best to tell the truth and not lie. You know, so those are good to us, and I think that's why I tell those as love stories. Even though, like I say, on paper, you agree or disagree with the form of punishment, that's what was being instilled in me, and that's what I took from it. Even then, you know, when my mom taught me to swim and threw me in the river, and here we come on a waterfall, that if I go off that, I'm not going to die, but I'm going to break a bone or two. And she walks along the bank with her arms crossed going, swim. When I finally put my head down and saw that waterfall coming and swam to the bank, I was scared, but I wasn't mad. I was immediately proud and like, you know, in shock, but I was immediately proud of it because I was like, Mom was right. She was right. It was time for me to learn how to swim.
Yeah, there's so many lessons in that. It's an extreme example of something that I think has been eroded in our culture in this time of, you know, participation trophies where, you know, we're coddling our kids to such an extent that we're depriving them of, you know, some of those rough and tumble moments where they get their knees skinned so that they can learn these lessons. You know, I don't know about the extreme of your examples, but at least letting kids fail and fall and get into trouble and figure out, you know, where their compass lies.
Let them go negotiate. I mean, I agree with you. I think in some ways we can and do deprive our children of understanding how to go negotiate a situation. I've been looking at it like this. It's like a tree limb. A child's not afraid of heights until they fall. Well, before they've fallen, it's like, all right, see them on that tree and you go, well, if they fell from there, I mean, it's going to hurt, but I'm not going to, you know, have to go to the hospital. I think I'll let them keep climbing there.
Uh-huh.
Let them go negotiate that. And maybe they make it or maybe they fall. Well, then it gets up higher, and there's certain things you go, like, man, if they fell from there, this could be really, really painful. I think now's the time to go, hey, everybody come on down a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, what level limb do we let them go out? And then we should, I think, a lot of society, raise the level of that limb a little bit to let our kids go, yeah, you're going to get bumped and bruised there, buddy. You're going to skin the knees. Go ahead and wear those knees out in your jeans or fall from that limb and go, yeah, you see? That happens.
Yeah.
If you don't pay attention. So, I would say I'm not, I don't think we should say the level of the height of the limb that my parents sort of proverbially let us walk out on needs to be the mean for everybody, but there is great value in those lessons. And we never were abused. We never were injured. It hurt. Blood was drawn, but we were never injured. There's a difference between hurt and injury, and we were never, and we were never abused. And again, the love was never in question.
And being reared in the kind of shadow of this outlaw logic, there was a fair amount of acting out on your part, but it was kind of healthy teenager stuff. Like, you weren't taking it to such an extent that you were getting into big time trouble.
No, number one, I was pretty good with getting away with stuff because I had two older brothers who, as they say, paved a wide highway for me. And, my brothers would jack with me because they were like, you little mama's boy, the golden boy. And I remind them, well, I got away with stuff better than y'all did too because I learned that. At the same time, I was, a bit of a hellraiser, but it was all sort of good. It wasn't too gnarly of stuff. I mean, I never really got into drugs. I didn't harm other people. I got
Holy bajoly moly, what the hey? Hey. How's about that? Well, I'm ready for this game. I was connected to this at some point, huh? I don't know about all that. Oh yeah, deep tissue massage. Get the knuckles in there. Oh, surgery and recovery. When I had a game done, dude, froze up. Just
away with some things that, wouldn't be prescriptive for everyone to get away with. But I also say this, and someone asked me the other day, do you believe, you were raised, as I see in the book, Matthew, with a certain amount of fear of your father and mother. You still believe in the value of that? And my answer is yeah.
So how do you translate that as a parent to 3 kids now?
Yeah, well, differently than my mom and dad did.
Yeah, I would think so.
Just because I don't choose to, and I'm not judging how they did it. Again, I write about this in the book. My parents also, their reasoning, trust me, I went to them before and said, would you please ground me? And they were like, no. I go, why? And I go, because that would be taking your time away from you, and your time is valuable. Now, bend over, we're going to get this over with, and then it's over. Glad that happened that way. That's not how I choose to raise my children right now. Camilla and I are trying to teach our kids values. We do talk. We do not say, because I said so, as much as my parents did, or most of our parents probably did. We do